Hey, Deserving listeners, the story of Natalia Grace. Let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's see what happens.
It smells like somebody's hiding something someplace.
No. Non-consensual microphone. If you think that he thinks his microphone is off, then you got to run to him and say, by the way, let's take your microphone. He's not the criminal, or at least I don't think he is. So this is no.
So I told him about my last interaction with my mom, but yeah, I guess the moral thing that I've been struggling with is if there's some like shred of hope that she can be redeemed, I don't think it's worth dragging her character down anymore.
Okay, that's not so bad. That's basically what he was saying before. But I think this points in the direction of him speaking off the cuff, so it seems more credible, or I don't think he's been lying at all, really. There doesn't seem to be anything shady about his presentation. I can't know, but I think we might be able to trust these words pretty well since he doesn't know he's being recorded, which I'm not happy about. But this isn't too bad. And he's saying, I think he's saying a little bit more specifically than what he was saying on the camera. That what did you say?
I guess the moral thing that I've been struggling with.
Okay, I didn't catch that. The moral thing. So is that referring to, look, it might be immoral for me to sit on this information?
If there's some like shred of...
Yeah, and then if there's some shred of hope that she can be redeemed. Yeah. So if you're her son, then you might be concerned about that. You might love her and wish that she can be redeemed. And also, you might want her to be redeemed so you can have a good relationship with her. And if you out her, then one, you might not ever see her or talk to her again because she will hate you, and it's your mother. And two, she might go completely overboard and just give up on redeeming herself. Maybe he knows that she's trying to improve herself. She's trying to recover. He might worry about that.
Hope that she can be redeemed. I don't think it's worth dragging her character down anymore.
I've done that. I'm done. You didn't hear my conversation with them yesterday. But I told the full and complete...
Okay, so the father, Michael, is saying, oh, well, I already told them everything. So this is interesting. I don't feel good about this being in the documentary, but it will be interesting if there's some explicit agreement from Jacob that he did witness the mother being physically violent with Natalia.
That's a nice way of saying I put 2 rounds in a shotgun and I fired. It's okay. I feel like I deserve the right to tell my story. I did not tell them.
And then this camera that they're, the camera person and maybe the producer behind them, they're trying to film enough to get footage so that they don't have to have just a blank screen, but they don't want to be seen by the people in the documentary because they're worried that they will not talk anymore and reveal things. So that's not okay. And, just think about it. You get called by a documentary crew and they're probably saying a lot of really nice things, right? Oh, we want to tell your story. We just really like you. You're a great personality. And then they just exploit them, especially Jacob. I mean, he's a kid. I mean, he's an adult now, but he's one of the kids. Not cool. It ruins it for other legit documentarians because if anyone ever wants to, say that I know that there's someone else that committed a crime, and I don't have a problem talking about that, but if I suspect or wonder if the documentarians are going to work against me, then I might say no to that. This is not a good precedent to set. And I'll say that I have been kind of in that situation, and that as a psychology expert, I will be interviewed in documentaries and other kinds of productions. They'll have a story, and then they'll have that talking head that, like that legal expert that just sort of pops in and out. And, I've been asked to do that, and I have found it to be, frankly, a waste of time. Unless I'm passionate about the topic, which would justify the time and the effort and the risk. But a lot of the time, they will take what I say and they'll massage it to say what they want to say, not what I said. Also, you know me, when you ask me a question, there's a lot of caveats. There's a lot of detail. I yammer. And documentarians do not want that. They want that soundbite, right? So I don't appreciate that. Also, the filming can take forever, and they'll use like literally 10 seconds. There was this one time, maybe the last time I agreed to do something like this was during the pandemic for a Tiger King documentary on Discovery. It might even be on HBO Max now, I guess it would be, right? Discovery ID or something. They were interviewing me about the Tiger King, and I told them, look, you probably don't want to interview me because I'm not going to diagnose Tiger King guy, and I'm probably just going to give a lot of detail about psychology and assessment and ethics. I don't think you want me. And we went back and forth. I was, really trying to let them know what my shtick is, And they were like, no, we still want you. We want that sort of thing. I'm like, why do you want that? It's not typically what documentarians put in a documentary. And I was like, okay. And since it was the pandemic, no one wanted to get infected, right? So they sent me all of the equipment, the lights and the cameras and the sound equipment and all, just all this gear. And I know how to use that stuff, so it wasn't too hard for me, but it meant that I had to set everything up. It took hours and hours one just came in the mail, and these, because these cameras are like these pro cameras, have these very expensive, gigantic cases and stuff. And I set everything up. And in order to be interviewed, normally there's someone asking me a question that's off camera. Well, I had to set up like a Zoom meeting as if they were there, but they weren't there. And then I spent all the time, I probably spent hours in the interview, and then I had to break everything down. I had to ship everything back. I did get one thing out of it, though. I got a selfie stick. When I make cameos, there's this little cell phone stand, because I was on a Zoom call on a cell phone, video call. They sent this cell phone stand so I could watch it. I was like, how do I send this cell phone stand back to you? Because that didn't have like a case. And they said, just keep it. I don't know, it's like a $7 cell phone stand. But whenever I do a cameo, I use that cell phone stand. And then you watch a documentary, and I'm in it like probably a total of 21 seconds or something. Now, whatever. But because, I don't know, in the old days, I thought of documentarians as like journalists, right? Like trying to discover the truth. They have ethics and morals. And this is not that.
I didn't tell them about kicking the stairs.
Well, kicking down the stairs, we said we're not going to say, right?
Yeah.
My plan we were going in today was...
Okay, let's rewind this. So Michael's saying, look, I told him about kicking down the stairs. Did we see that footage? I don't think we saw that. And then Jacob says, I thought we agreed we weren't going to talk about that. My plan going into... Let's rewind that.
I didn't tell them about kicking the stairs.
Well, kicking down the stairs, we...
So Michael starts off by saying, I didn't tell them that. What's that? And then what's this stair?
I did not tell them that. I didn't tell them about kicking the stairs.
Well,
I didn't tell them about kicking down the stairs. Kicking down the stairs. Have we heard? There's a lot of details here. I don't remember hearing anything about kicking down the stairs. And Jacob says, well, kicking down the stairs, we said we weren't going to say that, right?
Kicking down the stairs, we said we're not going to say, right?
Yeah.
My plan we were going in today was to not tell them that. And furthermore, I understand that there could be legal recourse to that. And then, I'm not really looking forward to like being subpoenaed.
Right. He's thinking what I was thinking might be thinking, which is, look, this isn't just an interview. This is an atomic bomb that would go off in my life, in our family. This, if you're Jacob, you're just like, look, Dad, you don't care because you hate Mom, but I still have a relationship with her, or at least I want one. So I don't want that relationship to blow up.
You were a minor.
Oh, okay.
A child in...
So my mic.
So I don't know, maybe that's true, but that doesn't sound likely. He's an adult now, so there's that. Plus, children can be witnesses when it comes to abuse. So Michael's either making stuff up knowingly or he's right. I don't know. But then Jacob says, oh shit, I still have my microphone on. I'm such an idiot. Yeah. Oh. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's a new year, so of course it's time for New Year's resolutions. But often those are just manifestations of internalized harmful voices, voices that tell us we're not good enough. So instead of making a resolution to change something, let's recognize that we are already good enough. Now, most people think of therapy as a place for us to work on our problems, but there are several schools of thought within the field of psychotherapy that adamantly reject that paradigm, like narrative therapy and solution-focused. Instead, these clinicians help us focus on what we're already doing well. And by helping us do that, data shows that we often will gravitate towards more beneficial patterns. Well, one place you can find such therapists is on BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. So celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
Microphone on. I am such an idiot.
Okay. So, yeah. I mean, he didn't say anything that he basically wasn't saying in the interviews. I mean, he was basically saying in the interviews, the consensual interview, that yes, his mom has issues, but he doesn't want to say. And by saying, I don't want to say, you're kind of saying it, right? Because he's already said things about his mom. So the thing he's not saying presumably is worse than the things he's already said. So, but it's not saying it. And in that stolen, clandestine recording, you know, there are laws against that, right? There are laws against recording people without their consent. They know that he doesn't know he's being recorded, and they're recording it. That doesn't. I don't like that. I do not like that. Now, there's the famous one with Durst. What was his name? Yeah, Robert Durst. The Jinx was the documentary, and from my memory, Robert Durst was implicated in a murder, but because of his riches and his lawyers or something, I could be getting this wrong, he wasn't convicted, and the documentarians were interviewing him, and they concluded an interview, and he stood up and walked out. I think they really confronted him on something, and he just wiggled out of it, and then he goes to the bathroom, and he still has a lapel mic on, and he says something under his breath. He whispers something like, I did it, or yes, I did kill that person. And it was shocking, obviously. Now, at first, when I saw that scene, and it's got to be out there somewhere, it's like, it looks like it's on YouTube, or at least the ending is, that it looks like, oh my God, he just admitted it, so done deal. But there's a lot of reasons why someone would mutter something to themselves, and I'm not making excuses. I think there was a lot of circumstantial evidence pointing in his direction, and I don't even know if it was murder. I think it was. Anyway, but it's not a slam dunk, you know, someone muttering. Now, if he had muttered a lot of stuff, you know, he's like, okay, yesterday I lied, but I really did it. You know, he kind of mutters a phrase. Anyway, point is that in that one, I'm just very skeptical. Can you tell? I'm just like, So that's what being a scientist does to you, is that when you actually study science, you study data, you study research, you study how people interpret research, even researchers, scientists will jump to conclusions. And it's one of the pitfalls of science is jumping to conclusions or wording things too confidently or too strongly. You know, I hope you hear in my language, I'll say, well, the data suggests that. The data suggests that when this happens, it's associated with this. And even that word, associated with, it doesn't mean that they always coincide or that it's causal. Correlation doesn't equal causation. So there's just a lot of things about life and nature that it's hard to determine. And so I'm I'm very, very skeptical of a lot of things. I'm guessing no lawyer would want me on their jury unless it was the defense, I suppose. I was on a jury for a drunk driving charge. It was an accident. No one was hurt, but it was a very interesting trial, and I and the rest of the jury very, very quickly, as soon as the trial was over, deliberated for 5 minutes and said, yep, guilty, because the defendants were, there were 3 defendants, and they had, I'll just tell you the story. So the 3 guys, they go to Hooters in Seattle, and they had drinks, and they got on the viaduct, if you're familiar with Seattle, the old 99 viaduct downtown, and they were going south, and something happened. They were sitting 3 abreast in a truck, in a little truck. And I don't know how or why, but because of drunkenness or something, the guy driving had smashed his car into the barrier, and then went and had shot across and somehow missed all the traffic, because there's usually a lot of traffic. And then they pulled off on First Avenue. Police had seen, or a parking attendant, parking meter person had seen him, and then the police show up because their car was undrivable. Otherwise, I think they would have driven off. And then the police investigated and determined who the driver was, because the 3 guys, it's hard to, they were outside the truck. And then the police officers determined who the driver was, and then did a breathalyzer and determined that that person was above the limit, and then had charged the person. But then the 3 guys were, I think, kind of rich or something, and had really good lawyers who figured out a way to get out of it. And what they said was the person that was identified as the driver was not the driver. The real driver was another guy, but you didn't do a breathalyzer on him, so you can't know if he was drunk driving. So case closed, they're innocent. But so the whole defense came down to the story that the 3 fellas were saying. And each of the fellas were saying a different story. And one of the guys seemed to be quite tortured as he was trying to defend seemingly his friend. He's like, so the fact that the 3 of the guys didn't even, and this was months later, they hadn't coordinated their story. And so it was not hard to convict. And also the guys, they just had a certain, it was the 90s, so it was the Roxbury, what's that skit on SNL, and that movie with Will Ferrell and the other guy, what is love? They were those kind of guys, and God bless, but not the sort of guys that I'm cheering for. And they had these really I always think of Color Me Bad, if you're familiar with the 80s. So I think he had it's like this. It's like when you go to a golf course, the grass is beautiful, but the greens, where the hole is, where you putt, that grass is pristine. It's unnatural how they can get this natural grass to just be perfectly shaven, if you will, and these guys had just these perfect groomed pencil beard things, and they all had the same one, I think on purpose, because the idea was that they were easily mixed up visually. I don't know why. See, Color Me Bad, that guy. Do you remember the song? I just thought of those. The 3 guys looked like him.
She's abusive. I couldn't stand up to that woman.
So if it is credible, and if he is legitimately a victim, then there's a possibility that he hasn't had treatment for this and hasn't been given sufficient space to express or talk about or explore what had happened to him. So in the interview, if this is the first time he's really getting into it, then there's going to be some emotionality. I guess the question is, do we think that this is a legit emotional expression? He's a little bit of an odd duck the way he expresses himself, but if we look past that, yeah, this is what would happen if you were to recall a story, even if you had been through some therapy, but I'm guessing he hasn't.
I couldn't stand up to that woman. I could today. I could now. With distance and space and clarity, I could now. I couldn't. I just couldn't.
There's still something kind of odd the way he talks. It seems like it's a little exaggerated. If I was to take a guess, I would say that the tears and the emotion is legit and that he isn't lying. And yet, when he talks, I think he feels like he has to amp it up a little bit to be more convincing or something. That's the way it feels to me. What does it feel like to you? It's also possible that he's tamping it down because he's trying to hold it together. I mean, if we're using it as a jumping off point, when people go through these kinds of traumas and they talk about them, yeah, it's rough. Now, some people will avoid the feelings and distance themselves from the details and just talk about it intellectually. That can happen too. But if people are feeling the feelings, then yeah, it's going to be tough. And you just imagine what it would be like to be him if he is a legit victim, being interviewed and going over all the stories over and over again, because we see how many hours of him being interviewed, but they typically will interview for every hour. You're probably being interviewed another 10 hours, or at least in the process of making the documentary. So just imagine it would really start to take a toll, and you would start to see evidence of that toll.
What else are you guys talking about?
Oh no, that's just all I wanted to talk about, but now I feel like a moron because I have my microphone on.
First off, even if they heard and asked you about it on camera, all you gotta do is say, I'm not comfortable talking about it. Done. Secondly, you are no legal trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're hearing more of the clandestine recording. He knows he's being recorded now. Michael knows he's potentially being recorded now. Let's rewind this.
What else are you guys talking about?
Oh no, that's just all I wanted to talk about, but now I feel like a moron because I have my microphone on.
First off, even if they heard and asked you about it on camera, all you gotta do is say, I'm not comfortable talking.
So this makes Michael look good in that he is telling his son, look, just draw a boundary. You don't have to say anything, because if Michael is lying or exaggerating, and he's the sort of person that would do that, then that would be in the direction of someone that would try to manipulate your adult son to disclose information along the lines that would corroborate and bolster your case. Particularly because I think Michael is being charged with things, right? I don't know if he's being charged at this point, but who knows? He could just be doing this for the microphone.
This level voice, they can't hear me. As a minor, you're in no danger whatsoever.
So then he thinks that if he talks quietly, they can't hear him. There's a volume, there's a gain knob you can get in there. All right, well, let's adjourn there. Tune in next time when I continue watching if you care to. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.